All right, 1 second here. All right, welcome to this class on Pirke Avos. Again, want to welcome everyone. This class on Pirke Avos. We are still holding by chapter 2, Mishna 13, part 23. Again, we're holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 2, Mishna 13, part 23. And we are speaking about in the name of Rabbi Shimon, and that is one who considers the outcome of a deed. Right? In other words, we're speaking about before that what's the proper way which a person should cling. Rabbi Lezer says a good eye, Rabbi Shua says a good friend, Rabbi Yossi says a good neighbor, Rabbi Shimon says one who considers the outcome of a deed. So we spoke pretty much last few weeks speaking about repercussions for our actions and how far these repercussions can actually go. So we'll mention another thing here, and that is if you look at Mishna 11, praises Rabbi Yeshua and says, happy is the one that gave birth to him. All right, his mother gave birth to him. Now, what's going on? Right, what's going on over here? So the Bartanur, Ravadja Bartanur, one of the great commentaries on the Mishnah and certainly on Pirke Avos, the Bartanur says it's the merit of his mother that she would take him as a child, as a baby, and bring him into the study hall and request from the rabbis, they should actually, even before he's born, they should pray for this unborn child to be a rabbinic scholar. And the Jerusalem Talmud, Yevamos, chapter 1, Mishna 6, says that it's talking about where the mother placed the baby carriage in the study hall. Obviously, I guess, baby's not crying or other things, that the child should only hear words of Torah. Right? So now you're going to say, okay, very nice. What does that have to do with anything? And simple answer is that we see there's great responsibility, huge responsibility for a parent to raise their children to learn Torah, right? Even at a very young age. Because obviously, if a parent would try and train their child at an older age, it can be harder. It can be much more difficult, right, to do such a thing. So the parents, whatever, we're going to speak more about this in a second. The parents, should pour out their hearts in prayer every day, right? We don't ask for our needs on Shabbos or festivals, but every day, a parent should pour out their heart in prayer. All their days that they should be successful. They should be successful to educate their kids. And with heavenly help, they will see, tremendous blessing, from their actions. Now, this is a pretty loaded statement. Definitely a pretty loaded statement here. So, so the issue here is that parents, as we understand, they have a great responsibility, tremendous responsibility raising their kids. But you have to start when they're younger. When they're younger, they're more, certainly, they're going to be more accepting, especially if, they're in a proper environment, they're learning properly, and they're getting reinforcement. Because if they're in a Jewish school, very good. Right? But the problem is, even in such a place where we would say, wow, you send your kid to school, by sending him to school, you're leaving the responsibility of the school. Now, the school might have, good teachers, whatever, but a parent has to be actively involved in their kid's education. That means that, they're in a Jewish school. Speak about what if you're not in a Jewish school, or even, a non-Jew trying to educate their kids. Yeah. So if a child is in a Jewish school, the parents have to be in contact, with their teachers, make sure everything, is going okay. You got to be careful who their friends are. Even the most religious of places, you can have, kids that are just bad influence, and that could totally destroy everything that the parents do. Because the reality is, where do kids get the most education? You're going to say in school. They're in school most of the day. Certainly in Jewish schools, they're, they got long hours. Now, that's true. And there's a lot of influence there, no question. But where essentially is the most influence a child's going to feel? At home. They're going to see what the parents do, what the parents say. Maybe there are contradictions between what they say, what they do, right? Which a child is very much going to pick up on. Because the child doesn't know anything else going on, making it easy. I'm not saying where there are other issues, so to speak. But a child sees what the parent does. So if a parent would say, you have to go learn and you have to do this, and the parent is, sitting back, reading newspaper, watching TV, obviously they're getting a mixed message. So, a child could say, well, why aren't you doing that? Isn't that your obligation? Also learn. So why are you kicking back? Right? Now, kids will say, and again, this is not an excuse, but kids will say, I see contradictions. I see what people say, and I see what they do. That's the worst. That is definitely the worst. Why? Because we are our own worst enemy. We have to be consistent to the best of our ability. It doesn't mean we're perfect. Kids understand parents aren't perfect, or at least they should. But the reality is we have a huge responsibility. A person learning how to drive, right? They're learning how to drive. Person, in the passenger side telling them, do this, don't do that. Like saying, do as I say, not as I do. Say, but you do the same thing, you do worse. You zigzag, you drive too fast. Okay, that's what I do, right? I don't want you to do that. Or again, if a person wants to pass a test, they have to be much more careful, right? Here in Israel, they'll fail you a whole bunch of times. It's a big money racket here. But they'll fail you a bunch of times and basically say, you have to drive exactly as the book says. But what's the problem? Nobody drives by the book. Nobody. So the instructor will say, if you don't drive by the book, you'll fail. Do as I say, not as I do. Now, educating kids. Now, this doesn't always work out, by the way. What happens a person becomes religious later in life. The kids are older, right? Or they come out of Christianity and decide they want to be a Noahide. Well, the kids are older, already been in public school, already been exposed to all kinds of things, right? Problem is, what's going to be, right? What's going to be with them? It's going to be much harder. Certainly much harder. I don't think there's any question. And the reason is because they've already lived their life a certain way. They've already been exposed to other things. And all of a sudden, what's the parent going to do? They're going to change. And they're going to say, oh, we came to this new realization. There's this idea called the no-hide law. I can say, great. What are the no-hide laws? What do I have to do? Right? What am I obligated? Or why? Even better. Why? They understand, okay, let's say now they're not Christians. Parents explain to the kid why they don't believe, in JC. Okay. But now you're going to try and educate them and say, okay, what are we going to do now? So now we have this thing, we can't convert. We're not going to convert for whatever reason. Not that anyone has an obligation to convert, unless they really want to. But, there's no obligation over here. But even so, now what? They've come to this new realization. They got this new realization. How are they going to change? How are they going to implement it? And they're still, let's say they're sending to public school. Now, there are many people who want to homeschool their kids because public school, a lot of stuff going on there that they don't want their kids to be exposed to be a part of. A lot of people homeschool. Okay. Right. But certainly someone wants to become Jewish can't do that. You got to be part of the system. You got to do what everyone else does. But, without all that, kids are older. Right? Kids are older. Now what? So I've got a question like this earlier that, we'll flush out the question. That's a good question here. The question was that they've been no-hides for the last 7 years. I'll tell you why certain things may be problematic or difficult, but they've been no-hides for the last 7 years. And this person, speaks to God on a daily basis. And they have 4 kids from 18 to 8. For 18 to 8. 2 of them are atheists. One and the other 2 feel that praying is dumb. I mean, they're younger, obviously. So now the question is how you turn that around. Right? So they admit they haven't talked to God on a daily basis. How can I turn this around? What about Shabbos? Can I observe Shabbos? To bring more of God's structure, right, into my home. Right? So there was a question about a non-Jew observing Shabbos. Now the problem is that this person feels a tremendous amount of guilt. Because now they've come into the realization what Torah is, what mitzvahs are, and they're staying as no-hides. That's fine. We're not looking for converts anyway. Being a convert, there's a lot of difficulty involved. Keeping all the mitzvahs and all that. Someone wants to, okay, but certainly being a no-hide is easier. At the same time, now there are a number of things going on over here. First of all, she's trying to incorporate these laws into their lives. Second of all, seems to be, it hasn't worked, in many ways. So it could be other factors, that they're not speaking about that I don't know about. But, I would say, there's always a conflict. And the conflict is, if you send to a school, you send to a school that has opposite values. Now, I don't think they're being homeschooled. I don't know. That wasn't part of the information that came in. But if they're going to a school where the values are radically different than they want to give over, it's going to be a very difficult fight. Because the kids are going to say, but this is what everyone does. This is what people think. You know, all kinds of things. As we always say, leave your mind open to your brains fall on the floor. A lot of issues. A lot of issues. Now, a person may say, well, try and let them figure it out. But if you're trying to give them value, right? I'm going to give a 7-year-old. I'm going to give a 7-year-old the ability to figure it out. They're 7 years old. They want to have fun with their friends. They want to do other things. But 90% of the education comes at home. Right? I know of somebody, this is years ago, and they flip-flopped on so many different things. They wanted to convert, then they went no hide, they went back to Christianity, like, bumping from place to place. And the kids were just like, make up your mind. It's either like this, it's like that. They didn't have real guidance, and that's also a serious problem, right? When you don't have guidance to try and figure it out on your own, it's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard. I'm not saying a person needs to be dictated to, right? But at the same time, how's the person going to figure it out? They're not. There's just too much information out there. Too many things pulling a person in different directions. So it's hard. It's extremely hard. So in this case, where, if they're doing the best they can, they want to give their kids good values, bring God into their life. So they claim this is their biggest failure. Their biggest failure. Or one of the, biggest failures. So one thing is, to keep in mind, and that is that a person, we have to do things to the best of our ability. Are we going to make mistakes? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes. Parents are not, we're not perfect. We may know the right thing to do, quote unquote, let's say. Doing it's a whole different thing. And not only that, there's an evil inclination. Everybody has an evil inclination, right? So if a person comes at it later, and you try to buck the entire system, and try and bring your family with you, and your kids are older, it's harder. There's no question. But somebody here points out that being an OI is harder. So in certain ways it is, right? In the sense that there's only really virtual community. There's not, a real community for people to go to. I mean, there are some, but person would have to get up and move. Problem is, no hide to spread out all over the world, right? And obviously, maybe not enough in certain places to make, to do something, right? Someone once told me, place where they are, they know, like, one other no hide that's like, 100 miles away, just like, I want to go out to coffee with somebody and be able to speak to somebody, but there's no one in the area. That's a problem, right? That is definitely a big problem. I mean, someone's trying to change that a little bit. It's going to be very hard to do, set up some of these communities, but nonetheless, you're right. There's no ritual, right? You can't make up a new religion, as the Rambam says. So there's not, there's very little ritual, if any, and community is a big issue. Support system, I would agree, right? Also an issue. Also an issue. That's, there are a lot of things going on here that are confusing. I know somebody that came in Ohio, certain place, very small place, right? Very small place. And that was, let's say 3,000 people. That's how small the place was. Their whole social network, and all their friends, where did everything evolve from? The church. So now what happens when you leave the church? Disaster. Right? You lost your whole social network. That's kind of hard. But this person said, I can't turn back. I'm not going to be a Christian. I can't convert. Right? I'm not really interested in conversion. So this is where they are. So it is harder. I would agree. I would definitely, I would definitely agree. That's for sure. That's for sure. But in certain ways, it is easier, right? There are different things that make it, definitely make it easier, no question. No question. But yeah, there are issues. I'm not going to say not. So here you're talking about you don't have support. You don't have community support. You don't have friends probably that support you because people are going to think you're a wacko. You're so into Judaism, convert, right? Someone once told me, I don't have to convert. I like eating shrimp. I like doing other things. Okay. We're not looking for converts. We're not interested in converts. Someone says, I want to be the real deal. I want everything. Okay. Right? It's catch-22 in different ways. Right? But yeah, that's an issue. That is the big issue over here. No communal support. Somebody becomes a Baal Tshuva, someone, a Jew comes back to Judaism, you have community support. For sure you have community support. Doesn't mean it won't necessarily be discrimination against them. It's another topic. Right? But there is community support, no question. Non-Jews that want to stay non-Jews, which is fine. Right? Even go to an Orthodox rabbi and say, yeah, I want to learn more and this and that. He's going to say, so convert. Not necessarily to push you off. They don't know how to deal with Noahides in general. Right? They'll say, so why don't you convert? I don't want to convert. I don't have any interest in converting. I want to learn I want to be the best Noahide I can be. So, there's an issue by us also. No one wants to deal with these people. Right? So, I've heard people say, well, that's our obligation. Our obligation is to be out in the world, right? Because the Torah says clear as day, we are a light into nations. Okay. 100%, we're a light into nations. So even if we're a light into nations, that means I have to go knocking on doors. I have to go knocking on doors. For that, who says? Right? Who says? Why? That's not my obligation. That's totally not my obligation over here. We have an obligation to try and help as much as we can. But who says that? The proselyte. Who says that's my obligation? Definitely not my obligation. No question. For sure not. So if that's the case, then again, the claim is you're not doing enough. And the reason we have so many problems amongst the Jewish people is because we're not out there reaching non-Jews. Again, let's make clear. Just because the Torah says we are the chosen nation. Chosen does not mean I'm out there proselytizing, trying to convince non-Jews to keep their mitzvah. Who says that's my obligation? Not my obligation. A non-Jew comes, right? People say, oh, what you do is proselytize. You're proselytizing to non-Jews. No. I tell people what I do. People want to come, they can come. They don't want to come, their choice. They're interested in conversion. Okay. They're not interested in conversion. Okay. I'm not convincing anyone. It's not my job. People are interested. They want to know what the differences are, this and that. Okay. But ultimately, the decision is theirs. But who says I have to be out there banging on the doors, putting up signs all around churches telling people about the Noahide laws? Now, Chabad does that, right? They're very active teaching non-Jews about the Noahide laws, okay? They're proactive. Mostly everyone else would disagree and say, no, we're not supposed to be proactive. That's not our job. Per se, someone wants information, okay? Right? There's no issue. There's no issue with that. Someone comes, they want to learn, very good. But who says it's my obligation to convince them? Not my obligation. Not my obligation. It's not brought down anywhere. Not the Babylonian Talmud, not the Jerusalem Talmud, early commentators, later commentators. Not my job. Not my job. But how are they going to find out? They'll find out. Right? The Gemara says, we mentioned many times, you want to go on the right path, God will help you. You want to go on the wrong path, God won't stop you. It's based on what the person wants. But a person will get the help they need if they want it. And if not, okay, God doesn't have to stop them. That's the bottom line. So, so here we get a problem. First of all, a person's going to feel guilty with what happened to their kid. I failed them. Now, that is true to a certain extent. Because at the end of the day, even though people have free will, we have an obligation to educate our kids properly. Now, if something happened on their onus, it's not our fault. Let's say it's not a parent's fault. Something happened, the kid went off. But it was something out of your control. Now, is the parent going to get blamed? To a certain extent, yeah. To a certain extent. Today, though, the power of the streets, power of social media, there's a tremendous power out there that, we're not in control. I mean, we should be in certain ways, but at the end of the day, a person wants to find whatever they want to find. They'll find it. And if they want to stray off, they'll stray off. Every generation has had serious issues educating kids. Right? The beginning of the 20th century, what was the biggest thing, that Jews were going off left and right? Socialism, communism, democracy. Right? They were drawn. They were drawn to these things. So a lot of kids, a lot of people, went off left and right, because of it. So today, it's not about philosophy, and all that, and Judaism's true, it's not true, it's desire. People are just doing whatever they want, and they're finding whatever they want. So based on that, it's not about truth. Not about truth seekers saying that. I'm not saying they don't exist. But the vast majority of people out there are doing what they want. It's not about the Torah is true, you can prove it, or whatever. People don't care. It is true, it's not true. I want to do what I want. Right? That's the bottom line. So, but I would say, and again, this is still not a guarantee, but I would say that a person needs guidance, spiritual guidance from a mentor, from a rabbi, someone who should know what they're doing in order to give advice what to do. Now, again, is that going to turn everything around? It's going to give person direction. Right? One of the first things I put on my blog, and that was, person wants to convert, don't think you can do it by yourself. Doesn't mean people are stupid, right? Or they're mentally challenged. We're not talking about that. Talking about it's a hard process to navigate, and what to know, and how to learn it, and all kinds of things. But if, and people think, well, I need the guidance now, but after I convert, I don't, I'm done. Well, that's when you need the most guidance, right? People don't necessarily see it that way. They'll see it afterwards. But a person needs guidance. They need somebody who's going to help them, who's going to direct them, so to speak. Now, even in such a case, it's not so easy for people to listen. And the reason is, first of all, people have been duped, maybe by rabbis, certainly in the church, they've been lied to, right? There's no question. So they say, well, the church fathers, they have their own quote unquote oral law. Why should you listen to the rabbi? Why should I listen to you? Good question. Why should anyone listen to me? I remember once I commented on someone's post, and someone said, what are you listening to him for? He's a rabbi on YouTube. Yeah. Why listen to me? Okay. Right. Not a problem. Not offended. You want to get information? Fine. You get it elsewhere. It doesn't have to come from me. Right. But the point is, I don't want to get lost in my own parable here. The point is, nobody gets anywhere without guidance. It's just not going to happen. Totally not going to happen. And again, it has nothing to do with knowledge here. A person can have, over 100 IQ. They can be brilliant. Doesn't matter. Right? Doesn't matter over here. So a person needs guidance. Now, does guidance guarantee? Does it guarantee a person's going to get what they want? No. Doesn't guarantee that. But if someone's got experience, someone has knowledge, and they implement certain things, that's hopefully certainly going to turn someone in the right direction. Now, in such a case, this person's at tremendous disadvantage. So even though, let's say the last 7 years, they've been Noahides, you're talking the oldest now is 18, right? He's talking he started at 11. This one started at 11, right? So, they started at a young age. Okay, right? This one started later. This one started, later, so it's going to be more difficult because it's already been ingrained in them different things they saw, right? So it's not going to be so easy to override that, to overturn it. So, yeah, the parent can explain, say, here, these are great videos, watch this or watch that. But again, they're a child. They're a child. I'm not saying children can't be educated, right? But if a person's already, I would say, like been thrown to the wolves, been exposed to so many things, okay, there's overexposure. Good. There's overexposure. Question is, now that they've been overexposed, and we've all been overexposed, so how do you channel that? How do you channel that for the right thing? How do you, example, person's a diehard sports fan, right? We use sports as an example, right? Person's a diehard sports fan. How do you get that out of their system? How do you try and convince them that, it's a total waste of time? So if it's a guy, he's got an opportunity to learn and he doesn't, he's wasting time, right? He's in trouble. So it could be the worst thing's going to be the waste of time. Okay. Right. Could be other things also. But let's say that's the biggest sin over here. So you're going to say there are worse things to do. Okay. But what does that do? How does that affect the person? So the person's watching something. Again, it's not Torah based. They're sitting there like a vegetable. Right? Get my couch potato, right here, right next to me. Watch together. Eat some popcorn, have some cake, have a great time over here. But what's it doing? Just sucking out your mind. That's what it's doing. What do I care? They win, they lose, and this. You're going to say it's exciting? Okay. All right, not going to deny that. I grew up as a sports fan, no question. No question. But, try and get that totally out of your system. Try and get movies totally out of your system. If a person likes sit back and watch this, that, and the other thing. Try and get that out of your system. These are hard things, right? You got to, in the bigger scheme of things, King David says, Psalm 90. Psalm 90 says, you're only here for 70 years. If you have strength, 80 years, right? Anything over that's a bonus, my language. So you're 70 years. 70 years. You're not here that long. The older you get, time goes much quicker. Much quicker. So the question is, what are we doing with time? I was talking to someone earlier, about, American Shiva students coming to learn in Israel, right? Even like, better ones, everyone has a smartphone. Everybody, right? In America, who doesn't have a smartphone? At least, it has texting and who knows what, maybe, it's filtered. Okay. But everyone has them. Everyone has them. Now, so my travels up north, I get to sit in, some stations, some bus stations or whatever. So, besides listening, to Torah classes. So I'm also, observing just, people walk by, see what they do. You're waiting for the bus, whatever it is. And the people have nothing to do. They're just sitting there waiting. What are they on? They're on the phone. Everybody just about. Not a small percentage here. It's like every last person, God forbid, they're alone with their own thoughts. What are they doing? They got their face in a screen. That's what they have. That's what they're doing. That's only what I see. I don't think Israel's any different than anywhere else. Right? So everybody. Right? Everybody. It's just unbelievable to see. That's where the hold it. And you have two people talking to each other and both looking at their screens, for different things. Like, you can't have a normal conversation, so to speak. Okay, it's, maybe I exaggerate a little bit, right? But the idea is, you got a little bit of free time. What are people doing? can't be alone with themselves. Why can't they be alone with their own thoughts? Depressing, whatever's going on. So what do? They want to numb their minds. Send another text, look at another thing, whatever. You know, and if they don't sleep on the bus or whatever, what are they doing? They're looking at the screen. You know, that's what they're doing majority of the time. So I was telling someone today. So I said, you know, and these guys are better guys. You know, coming to Israel and learning this and that. But they're all attached to their phone. True. Right? You know, they're all attached, right? Totally attached. So how do you tell someone who's totally attached? How do you tell them, you know, you're gonna have to answer? You're gonna have to answer for this wasted time. Now again, let's say it's not something ultimately so forbidden, right? In other words, you know, they're not the end of the world, what they're doing. Maybe at best it's wasting time. Okay. Right. You know, maybe it's just a waste of time. Good. You know, maybe that, but it has a collective effect. What do I mean? You know, if a person, you know, was learning something, it was very hard to understand. They had to think, they had to concentrate. You know, what would they rather do? Try and break their head on something that's going to give them eternal life, you know, or watch something that's going to be funny, you know, or entertaining or whatever, right? We know what the obvious answer is, but that has a tremendous effect. And that is, remember when I was in college way back when, I wrote I had to take English comp. I had to take 4 semesters, English composition. So I had to write an essay, whatever, one essay I ended up writing. I don't remember what the topic was, but I took this topic, and that is, you know, why watching sports on TV hindered my true potential to be a student. So I spoke about football, American football. You know, you had a pregame show, you had the game, you had the halftime show, you had all the highlights, you know, the end of the game, you know, you got the end of the game highlights, you know, of all these other games. And you got a 4 o'clock game, right? Go through the whole thing again. You got a 4 o'clock game. You know, at that time, it also was a 7 o'clock game, right? On Sunday. Now they got games on, you know, they had games on Monday. Now they got games on Thursday. You know, sometimes later in the season, they had games on Saturday. You know, who knows what. So I said you watch all day. You don't get any work done. Or what some people would do is they'll do busy work. They'll do work they don't really have to think. And they'll watch at the same time. You know, but the irony is you've seen all the highlights, so you watch them again. You know, and then 11 o'clock, 11:30, see all the highlights again. Right? So, okay, maybe it's a little bit, you know, an exaggerating, but what does that do? Why is it so bad? You know, in general. It's so bad because a certain person gets in a certain frame of mind. Once you get in that frame of mind, I'm not saying it's not enjoyable. Anyone enjoys sports, it's enjoyable, right? It's fun to watch, you know, as long as your team doesn't lose, right? You know, it's fun to watch. It can be aggravating. It can be aggravating also, but at the same time, you know, unless the person's not into sports, okay, it's entertaining. Movies are entertaining. Some could be sad or some could be great or whatever. You know, they're entertaining. So how do you break that? How do you break out of that? Right. So now, right, had a number of comments here, right? You know, a number of comments. You know, that yeah, being an OI is easier. Okay. Right. It's harder in other ways, but I would agree. In many ways, it's easier. But keep in mind one thing. And that is that there are things I would say that are not, you know, forbidden, you know, as part of the Noahide laws, right? Definitely not forbidden. But at the same time, I would say it's a moral imperative, right? A lot of things. Speaking Lashon Hara being one of them. Why? Because speaking Lashon Hara, you're going to say, well, it's not universal. It's not universal for everybody, right? In other words, it's not, you know, a person wouldn't figure out it's not permissible to speak badly against someone else. Give an example. The Chofetz Chaim says, the laws of Lashon Hara says like this: if a person knows something, knows it to be true. Let's say, for argument's sake, we all know it's true. It's all over the newspapers. I know people still read newspapers on social media. Everyone agrees it's true. And we'll say they got it right, it's true. Does that give me a right to repeat it whenever I want? No. Chofetz Chaim says no. Why not? He says it's still considered Lashon Hara, even if it's true. Right? That's the thing people don't get. Lashon Hara is normally you lie about somebody. Right? You say something negative about them. And it's a lie. Right? But Lashon Hara can be on something that's true. It can be 100% true. Now, if that's the case, you tell a secular Jew or a non-Jew, if everybody knows it's true, can I repeat it? They'll say, what's the problem? I should be able to repeat it whenever I want. Not true. Chofetz Chaim says no. You have to meet certain conditions. Not only that, the Chofetz Chaim says, even if you meet the conditions, who says you did it right? Who says you did it 100% right? Maybe you missed something here, there. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to rely on this. Now, most people are going to say, come on, that's not logical. Totally not logical. So good. So now, if it's not logical according to the Torah, guess what? Non-Jews don't have to keep it. It's not part of the Noahide laws. Oh, but Kaufman would say, I don't think I'm the only one, but Kaufman would say, guess what? Even if it's not one of the Noahide laws, let me ask another question. Is this a good thing for you? Does this make you a better person by sitting there and ranting against someone else? Even if it's true. And a person would say, be so brazen and say, I would even say in front of their face. That's how brazen they would be. So what? Is it a good thing for your soul? You're drawing yourself closer to God or not? What's the answer? No. But someone will say they deserve it. Okay, let's say they do. Let's say 100% they do. Right? Even if they do so, what do I care if they deserve it or not? Right? Does that make it any more permissible? Doesn't make it any more permissible. Right? It should not make it any more. Permissible. Right? For that reason. Because it's not good to do. It's forbidden to do. And when a person speaks Lashon Hara, they kill 3 people. They kill themselves by saying it, more than 30 prohibitions in one shot. They kill the person they said against, and they kill the person who listens, right? If they believed it. We're going to say they deserve it. Look what they did. Okay. So let's say it's true, right? And in certain cases, it'll be forbidden to repeat. You don't meet all the criteria. You can't repeat it. You can't say it. So again, explain that to somebody. So now they're going to come back. And say, guess what? They're going to say, guess what? At the end of the day, bottom line is, it's not good. Now, are they obligated? Is a non-Jew obligated in such a thing? No. Totally not obligated. Does it make them a better person? No. Totally not. Totally not. So if that's the case, why they do it? Because it makes them look better. They're knocking someone else down in order to make them look better. That's not good. Right? That's forbidden. You don't have anything in your hand. If a person stole, they have something in their hands. If they make fun of someone, this and that, what do they have in their hand? Nothing. Right? They make fun of someone when it's forbidden. For what? To make themselves look better. To get a good laugh or, whatever. So there are a number of things. I'm not going to go through a whole list here. There are a number of things that non-Jews may not be liable for. Are they liable, for wasting time when they could have watched, when they could have learned Torah? No. They don't have that obligation. Jewish men have an obligation. They got to learn when they're not working. That's what they have to do. So if that's the case, okay, so he's saying there's nothing wrong with it. I don't have an obligation to learn. Right. You don't have an obligation to learn. Kaufman's question is, Does that make you a better person right now? Some people say yes. My team is winning. My team is good. This and that. I enjoyed it. Just like eating a nice steak or whatever. Beautiful. So we're talking, what's a person's goal in this world? What are they doing in this world? They'll get there. What are they supposed to do? They're supposed to draw close to God. That's what they're supposed to do. That's their obligation. So anything that takes them away from that's much harder. It's much harder in that goal. It's like taking 2 steps backwards. Now I have to take 2 steps forward in order to get to 0. That's a much harder thing to do. But the point is, all these things, that's my point here, is all these things are within. They're within a person. Once it's within you, once you've done it a number of times, I'm not going to say impossible. It makes it very, very hard to fight against. Very, very hard. Because now it's part of your psyche, right? Totally part of your psyche, over here. So again, back to this case, someone's trying to educate their kids. It's going to be much harder because they've been exposed to so many things. But they're kids. If you're telling me they started at a very young age, you started educating them in the right way, gave them what they needed, and all that. And, they had a peer group, they had a community. Okay. And even if they decide to go off later for whatever reason, they had all the elements for success. In this case, it's hard to find elements for success. Kids are younger. They have no peers, which makes it harder. They have no community. Someone here pointed out. True. No, I don't have so many communities. It's hard. I agree. Right? Maybe virtual communities, but, very few people on the ground. That makes it much more difficult. So I would say, first of all, a parent, this parent has to, cut themselves some slack. It's hard. How are you going to look at everything and who they play with and this and that? It's very hard, right? It's very hard over here. So true. Maybe they have 2 kids right now that are atheists. Okay. They still have to do whatever they can, right? Try and educate them the right way if they choose not to. Kids don't want it, meaning, okay. It's a very sad thing. Let's say we'll make it worse. Let's say they had a proper upbringing. Let's say it's a Jew. They had a proper upbringing, right? They went through the system, and then they decide they don't want it later. And then they go off. It's their choice. But parents still, get certainly responsibility over here. But you're going to say, come on, it's onus. It's not their fault. There are other things that could happen. True. Very true. But we bear the brunt because we should have tried other things, whatever. Don't they have free will? They do. But again, parents are going to pay a price. They will pay a price. Now again, how God's going to look at it, that's only for God. But we are going to pay a price. If a person had, let's say 5 kids, 4 out of 5 turned out all right. They went in the right path, 1 didn't. You're liable for that person. Even if they have free will, doesn't matter what happened to them, right? I hear people say, well, this happened, bad influence, teacher embarrassed them, and that's it, they leave. Or they just leave because they want an easier life. Okay, it's their choice. It's their choice. Just because they had a bad teacher doesn't mean they say, okay, I'm going to throw off the whole yoke. That's an excuse, right? That's a total excuse. So no, I'd have it more difficult in other ways. I agree. But this person's at a major disadvantage. I know somebody actually, one of my daughter's father-in-law, I know this family, very well, more than 30 years. And the parents became religious in midlife. So the kids were older when the parents became religious. And all the kids, they embraced Judaism. I mean, they were Jewish, they didn't convert, right? They were Jews, they went to Jewish schools, and they all have Torah families. Now, it's not always like that, right? I know someone else, they became religious later in life. Their kids don't want to have anything to do with it. They still have a relationship, right, with them, but they don't want to have anything to do with it. So it could go either way. It could go either way. But isn't it their choice? Their choice. It's totally their choice. But who gets the responsibility of not educating them properly? The parents. They get the responsibility. There are parents that, it sounds kind of silly. We'll let them decide. Really? Such a crucial thing. You're gonna let somebody with, doesn't know nothing about nothing. You're gonna let them make the biggest decision of their life. You're not gonna try and influence them or try and educate them properly. No, we'll let them do whatever they want. Like, it's kind of cruel. Some people will say, well, you brainwashed your kids. I said, thank God. My kids say, thank God that's the case. That's the case. Because you want, what are the chances of them growing up and want to keep Judaism if you don't educate them in the right way? Now, that's the only chance you have. Everything else is just a hodgepodge. You'd be lucky if they married Jews, right? Which is just the goal of a lot of people today, just at least their kids are married Jews. If they're getting married, that's all another topic, right? But the point here is that I told I told somebody who thinks that, obviously, I'm a fanatic and I should be more normal and other things, okay. So I asked them, give me a better system where Jews are going to get educated properly, right? Jews are going to get educated properly and they're going to go in the right path and keep Torah and do mitzvahs the way it should be done. Right? So they said, okay, you have a point. They didn't disagree. They said the Orthodox are the only ones that have the power to pass it down to the next generation. Person was honest, intellectually honest. They know what the score is out there. They're intellectually honest. But they said, you're still a fanatic. You're still a fanatic. Okay, so what? Even if I am a fanatic. And my family's fanatic. And all ultra-Orthodox Jews are fanatics. So give me a better system. There is no better system. We have a 95% success rate. Or let's say even 90%. Let's say, I'll be generous. Let's say it's a 10% dropout rate. Could be. I don't know what the stats are. I don't think it's higher than that. But let's say it's 10%. 10% dropout rate. That means we have a 90% chance of success. That our kids are going to marry Jews, perpetuate the religion further. Good to the next generation. What about the secular world? What about the secular Jewish world? The secular Jewish world, they have 60, 70% intermarriage rate, right? That's if they even get married. Well, let's say 60, 70% intermarriage rate. That's a nightmare. That means, we'll be generous. 7 out of 10 are going to intermarriage. 7 out of 10 Jews. That's a recipe for disaster. Disaster. Absolute disaster. That's what's happening. It's either, I would tell people, you look like an Orthodox Jew like me, or you disappear. That's it. Any form, doesn't matter. Right? Not going to discriminate here. Right? But you want to be able to pass it down, the greatest success. So I had somebody admit that. Most people are not intellectually honest. I met a few. Over the years. In the last 30 years. I can count on one hand. Right? But we have a huge responsibility. That's the point. We have a huge responsibility. Huge. To educate our kids. And if they're older, or even better, if they didn't have proper guidance, which doesn't seem like this person had proper guidance, then it's like the blind leading the blind. Then you have no idea what you're doing. I mean, again, I feel bad. I feel bad for people that don't have proper guidance. Because what they end up doing is, they have the best of intentions, but they mess their kids up in the process. And they themselves don't know what they're doing. So people say, you're right, no-hides, it's easier. There's plenty for a no-hide to learn. And they can't learn Talmud, right? That doesn't apply to them. Besides the no-hide laws, they can learn Musar, ethics. It's like we're learning now. They can learn Jewish history. They can learn Torah, right? They can learn Chumash. They can learn the Prophet. I could keep people busy till I'm 250, which I won't get there, but, till 120. Plenty what to learn. You're right. The process is different. What they do is different. It's harder in other ways. I agree. 100%. Right. But at the same time, a person could have a rewarding life. You have to know how to do it. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy because you don't have community support. Certainly don't have family support. Right. Most likely, if family are Christians or whatever. Right. You're not going to have that. You don't have community support. They don't have peers. It's very hard. It's extremely difficult. No question. No question. Now, someone here mentions, there's more what to speak about, but I want to hit some of the questions here. Someone here mentions that Chabad won't help people convert. They sometimes give classes, true, right? They don't, most Chabads do not have, they don't have their own rabbinical court that they do conversion. I met somebody years ago that actually there was a Chabad, they convened a rabbinical court in order to convert them, but that's rare. Very, very rare. So a person here says, well, where they are, you have a Chabad center, you have conservative reform, right? You have no Orthodox outside of Chabad. Okay. That's all you have, right? They may not do the conversion. They'll have to send you somewhere else. Maybe, they'll send you to another community to convert, but you have to be part of a working, of a Jewish community. Chabad's not, I wouldn't say it's the greatest Jewish community because, a lot of people that go there aren't necessarily religious. And if you had kids and you had to educate them, you need a place that has schools, right? So if a person really wants to convert, they have to get out of Dodge. They have to be part of a greater community. Now, some rabbinical authorities will say, or rabbinical courts will say, okay, if you're in striking distance, very good. What's the problem? What's the problem over here? If there's a community, there's no bigger community, and in the community you only have Chabad, what could happen? If there are no other Orthodox synagogues, what happens? Or what could happen, let's say better. Chabad could go out of business. What happens if Chabad goes out of business? You're stuck. Then what? I'm not saying Chabad goes out of business. They're probably the greatest fundraisers. They're unbelievable. How they're able to, keep their communities going, whatnot. But, rabbinical court can say, I want you to be in a stronger community. And if a person has kids, what are you going to do? How are you going to educate them? So I've heard some people say, well, I'll just go conservative. I just want to be Jewish. Okay, but it's not going to be recognized. All right, I spoke about this last week. Someone once asked me, if I have a conservative conversion, that'll help me for an Orthodox conversion. My answer was no. Why not? Because it's going to make my life more difficult to re-squeegee. That's an Israeli term. Re-squeegee because they don't, you can't mop here. They do sponges. So we'll say you're going to use, I'm going to re-sponge your mind or re-squeegee your mind. Anyone who takes that word, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to patent that, right? Nonetheless, I'm going to, I said it's going to take me longer to re-squeegee your mind because of all the stuff they taught you is probably all false. 99% of it. Maybe there's a little bit they taught you that was true. Okay. Right? But going in that direction doesn't help anyone. Doesn't help anyone because I'm going to say, but I just want the name. I just want to be considered Jewish. According to who? So you read a few books. That's it. What are they going to teach you? They're going to teach you real Jewish law? No. Because they don't know real Jewish law. Right? My wife's becoming religious. She asked a conservative rabbi, am I allowed to ride a bike? He goes, you want to know what I do? Now, does that sound like a question? Was that a personal question? That wasn't a personal question. The question was, halachically speaking, are you allowed, according to Jewish law, to ride a bike? So what did this idiot say? So this idiot says, you want to know what I do? No, I don't care what you do. Are you allowed to ride a bike or not? And his answer was, I ride a bike on Shabbos. Does that sound like they know anything about Jewish law? No. Maybe some of them know a little bit, maybe. I'll be a little bit generous. I don't think so. Certainly not from my experience. So a person who wants to go that way says there's nothing else. Okay. So what? So then you don't convert or you move. You say, but I can't move. So then you can't convert. Nothing else to do. So a person will say, well, I'll take one over the other. Again, it's a person's choice. But, either God spoke on Mount Sinai or he didn't. And if he did, what's my obligation? We got to keep all the mitzvahs. You can't just throw out what you want. You can't just do what you want. Right? But again, I know somebody went through reform conversion and they couldn't get out of their mind that they paid all this money, so they want to finish. I said, but you don't believe it's true. You definitely don't believe it's true, but the person couldn't get out of their mind of what they did. Right? Totally what they did. Right? It's a joke. It's a joke in that sense. You think about it. So, so I said, so why don't you consider it like you gave money to a bad charity? You gave money to a bad charity, move on. No, I want to have the piece of paper. You don't believe in it. It's like the circular conversation went nowhere. Went totally nowhere. So the person could get over the fact he spent the money. So I said, okay, you wasted money, move on. Now you know what the truth is, move on. That was it. That was it. I didn't hear from them again. And, they probably said he's a fanatic, whatever. I'm going to enjoy having the title of being a Jew, okay? But no one else recognizes it. So you can have the title. You can have the title. What's it worth? We believe in truth. We want truth. We don't want something fake, but there's nothing else. Okay. So what's your choice? What's your choice? Your choice is either move. You can't move, then you're stuck. What do you do in a situation if a spouse doesn't want to convert? Get divorced? Could. I wouldn't tell people to do it unless there are other issues. Certainly not. If there are other issues, fine. If there aren't any other issues, okay, so you don't convert, you'd be a no-hide. But they're a Christian, okay? Doesn't mean you can't marry a Christian. We said you can't marry a Christian, right? Okay, it's idolatry. What they're doing is idolatrous, true. You're going to have an issue with kids and how to raise them. Also true. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of issues. Going to be a number of issues. I mean, you can't stay married. I know somebody for years. The person was married. He became a no-hide. And his spouse was really a Bible thumper, a family with Bible thumpers. They ridiculed this guy all the time. Guy reached out to me. He's like, "What am I supposed to do? Everything else is more or less okay. But what am I supposed to do over here? Getting ridiculed all the time. Who wants to get ridiculed by their spouse? So I said, you never have much of a choice. If everything else is going okay, you got to try and say, listen, we can agree to disagree, but you don't have to be a doormat. Necessarily a doormat over here. But what happened? What happened in the end? The spouse came along, came around. And, but this person went through a lot. This person went through a lot over here. So again, would I tell someone to get divorced because of it? No. You got the same thing. Two Jews are married. And one spouse decides, they're becoming more religious, and others like, I don't want, I'm not interested. They still want to watch TV and do whatever they want, quote unquote on Saturday and all that. So it's their choice, but it's not gonna be so easy. Stay in such a marriage. I mean, there are people who work it out. The famous story of Rabbi Ori Zohar, blessed memory. He was like, the most famous, returnee to Judaism, Baal Tshuva. He was a famous actor, famous Israeli actor. And his wife didn't want to become religious. He's like, whatever you do, fine, I'm not interested. I don't want to have any part of it. So, he went to his, to his rabbi and asked him what to do. He said, give her time. He said, give her time. Right? And eventually, it's interesting, what happened. Eventually, she came around. She saw, I don't know, one of his tables, one of the books of the Rambam, Maimonides. And she picked it up. She can read Hebrew. So, she picked it up and she started looking at different, I don't know. I remember what the laws, what exactly the laws were. But when she started to, to look at it, she she's ready to sit there and make fun of it all. These ancient rabbis, what do they know and this and that? And she sat there like dumbfounded. It's like, wow, like this is very powerful. This is like, a lot of knowledge over here, not just, some flippant, faith or, whatever, and eventually let her back, let her back to, becoming an Orthodox Jew. But again, it's not necessarily guaranteed. It's complicated, right? It's definitely complicated. On that. Somebody here mentions, one second, there was something. Someone here mentioned, one second. Someone asks, for modesty reasons for women, right? We'll take this question. Red is frowned upon on Shabbos. No, It's not just frowned upon on Shabbos, frowned upon even during the week. As really has nothing to do with Shabbos. It's about, it's a, I guess it was a color that, immodest, let's just say, will make it clean, immodest people would wear. So, Jewish women shouldn't wear it, even bright colors, right? Not just red, bright yellow, whatever. Why bright colors? Why do we have to be like dark colors? First of all, it represents humility. That's one thing. Second thing is bright colors cause attraction. What do I mean cause attraction? Cause people to look, cause people to stare, right? So you'll see Orthodox Jews, men and women, they don't wear, I'll say ultra Orthodox Jews, you don't see them wearing bright clothing. You'll see men's very easy. You wear, let's say a blue suit, dark blue with or without pinstripes, dark gray with or without pinstripes, black with or without pinstripes. Right? That's pretty easy. Most people wear a white shirt. Modern Orthodox, they can, who knows what they wear? They can wear just like what everyone else wears. They might wear pink shirts, yellow shirts, khaki pants. I don't know. Whatever. They dress how everyone else dresses. Ultra Orthodox communities, is different. So women also do not want to cause attention, to themselves. So any bright color would be forbidden, right? Because again, it's going to cause attraction. But red would be forbidden. Again, this doesn't have to do with Shabbos. This has to do with every day, right? As well. But what if it sprinkles or glitter? Again, if it's a small part of, let's say, a blouse or a dress or whatever, but it's not like, it's not like so out there. People are going to say, oh, look, it's so bright. If there's like a little bit glitter here and there, yeah, I don't think it's an issue. I don't think that would be an issue. If the whole thing is glitter, and bright color, yeah, that would be an issue. That would be an issue. But again, it has nothing to do with, Shabbos. It'd be during the week also. Someone mentioned if your spouse doesn't want to be religious or isn't religious, can they drop you off at synagogue? No. Let's say better. If, let's say the spouse is Jewish, that's, that'd be forbidden. They're not allowed to do work for you on Shabbos. I remember someone once said, to put out, like I say, a small fire on Shabbos. You have to, put it out, right? So someone said, I'll do it, right? I'll do it. I don't keep Shabbos, so I'll do it. No, you have to do what's right. Just because someone doesn't keep Shabbos as a Jew doesn't mean they can do things for you, right? Now, if it's a let's say, if they're not Jewish and you're Jewish, you got a problem. You can't be married to them, right? Unless they, if they want to, unless they want to convert, right? It's going to be a problem. It's going to be a major problem. Can they do work for you on Shabbos? No. They cannot do work for you. I mean, if a person was married, a Jew's married to a non-Jew, they haven't converted. Yeah, you can use them like a Shabbos coin. They can do all kinds of things. I mean, you have to be careful. They can't just do whatever they want for you, right? But I mean, these laws are complicated, right? These laws are actually extremely complicated, But if they say, let's say it's, I don't know, the weather's bad, it's raining out, can the non-Jewish spouse drive the Jew, on Shabbos? No, certainly not. I mean, is it better going with the non-Jew? Yeah, it is. But, he's still not allowed to, right? It would still be forbidden. All the more so if he's married to a non-Jew. It's a big problem, huge problem, right? So, yeah, that's gonna be a whole discussion what to do. If let's say, the Jew becomes more religious, the non-Jew doesn't want to convert, right? It's bad enough let's say they're married. Now what? Now what? Every time they're intimate, it's over, Torah prohibition. Might be rabbinic prohibition, but I think it's Torah prohibition, right? So that's disaster. It has nothing to do with the non-Jew. Non-Jew doesn't transgress. The non-Jew doesn't transgress over here. It's the Jew that's got the problem, right? The Jew's got a serious problem here. So, what would happen? I'll just, just throw this out there, make it a little more graphic, but keep it clean here. Let's say the Jew the Jew is a woman, right? Well, both are Jews. So let's say we'll make it easy. We'll make it easy. Both are Jews. Now, the man is becoming more religious, and the wife doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Right? In the case of Ori Zohar. Right? Now, there's a problem here. There's a very serious problem here. What if, she will not go to the mikveh? After she has a period, she starts bleeding, whatever, and she doesn't, she won't go to the mikveh. You can't be with her. Can't touch her. Can't touch her, nothing. That's a serious problem. That is a serious problem. Right? There's, they get divorced her for that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong, between them. Right? There's nothing bad going on between them. But she won't go because she doesn't believe in it. She thinks, as Kaufman would say, it's spiritual coding. Why do I have to go? I'm not impure anymore. I was never impure. Right? They don't believe in it. It's a natural thing. Until a woman hits menopause. Okay. Very good. So, you say she's not clean. Well, she has to go to the mikveh. And if she won't go to the mikveh, that's a problem. That's a serious problem. Well, it's going to cause a lot of friction, that's for sure. But that's a serious problem. You can't be with her otherwise. If she's a non-Jew, she doesn't have to go to the mikveh, but you can't be with her either. Right? It's a catch-22. You can't have both ways. You can't have it both ways. So that is going to need, some serious therapy, what to do. Or, speaking to Rabbanim or whatever, speaking to rabbis, whatever it is, that's going to need this, serious thing to fix here. And if it can't be fixed, this rabbi told Rabbi Ori Zohar, give your wife some time. Right? I think she's also going, I go against going to the mikveh as well. She won't have any part of it, nothing. She said, you do what you want to do. I don't want to have anything to do with it. Right? They didn't have problems between them. As far as I understand. That wasn't the issue. The issue was he's becoming religious, she's not. So, but there are other ramifications. Kashrus is an issue. Right? What she does in the kitchen, would be an issue. Family purity laws, an issue. There are a number of issues there. So, this rabbi you went to told him, don't be so quick to divorce. Let's see where it goes. But he helped them along and she came along. Now it doesn't mean that's going to happen for everybody. Right? But you're going to say, but the person comes closer to God, why does this happen? So I don't have answers. This is going to be the right person they were supposed to marry, but the other person didn't want. There's certain things going to be hard to live with. Extremely hard to live with. For someone to be intimate with their wife when they want to be intimate, when it's permissible, they can't do it. That's because the wife refuses to do something else. That's a problem. I'm talking about just going to the mikveh. That's the only issue. And they refuse. That's a huge problem. That is not something easily overcomable unless, and there's nothing to do either. There's nothing to do over here. You're not allowed to touch her. Totally not allowed to touch her. So that's a big test. That's a huge test over here. But if she refuses, yeah, he could divorce her. He has the right, 100%. But he can say, but I want to divorce her. Not interested in getting divorced. They have a good relationship. So if that's the case, what do you do? So again, it's complicated. This is definitely, a complicated issue. What to do. What to do in such a case. But I said I know of one case like that. I know one case like that. I know another case, now it was the opposite. There's a woman who was religious and the husband wasn't. But the husband wasn't against. People built a sukkah for them, other things. But, as far as I understand, I think they stayed married. I don't know for sure, but, it's kind of hard, gives mixed messages to the kids. Or you can have cases where I've heard of cases where one spouse just says, I'm done with Judaism. They want out. And the other spouse is left holding the bag. And what about educating their kids? It's a disaster. I'm not saying they get divorced per se. I mean, probably end up getting divorced, right? But if they don't have the same values and there's no way to get around that and they don't want the same values anymore, they're not going to stay together, and that's going to have unbelievable ramifications, certainly for their kids. One spouse just, one day wakes up and says, no, I've had enough. They were faking it for a long time. And now they say, that's it. I can't fake it anymore. I don't want to do it. I'm not doing this anymore. Now, some have been able to work it out, where they can stay married, where there are boundaries. There are certain boundaries, okay. But a lot of times, and let's say it's a father that goes off, what happens? Doesn't go to synagogue. Doesn't take his kids to synagogue. Doesn't learn, right? He's doing other things. So I know of a case, I read a story of a case where the husband, for the sake of family unity, he kept Shabbos, did what he did on his own, but essentially, kept the peace, because that's, he wasn't so anti, but he couldn't do it anymore, right? So this is complicated. This is complicated. You have, I've heard of stories, crazy stories, where one of the spouses says, "Okay, I'm gay. I can't. I just stay married." Right? They come out of the closet, like, so to speak. Not whatever, however it happens. Heard stories like that. I know of a story, somebody's married, became a woman. Guy became a woman. Right? Totally became a woman. I told this last week. Guy became a woman and then repented, but now he's a woman. Now he's got the quote unquote the status of a woman, even though really gender doesn't change, but question what you do with them. But now like his kids have two mothers, seemingly. That's that's weird. I don't want to, keep harping on this topic. It's just weird. It's just a weird thing. But I would say that's extreme, right? It can happen though. People going off certainly can happen. I've heard a number of stories where one spouse, just leaves the fold, leaves Judaism altogether. They don't have anything to do with it, or, whatever, or, other things can happen. Other things can happen and put a major strain on them. What do you do with your kids? And how you're going to educate them? And it's complicated. So back to our topic, I know I'd married to a Christian. You can marry a Christian. Question is, you can marry a Muslim. Nothing wrong with it, per se. Question is, what are you going to do with your kids? That's an issue. That's definitely an issue. But to stay married to such a person, okay. Someone who's of the avodah zarah, they're idol worshippers. Okay. Right? Does that mean you can't marry someone like that? Doesn't mean that. You can't get married in a religious ceremony like that. Okay. You have to get married in a different way, but the only it's their choice. It's their choice. What if a person, two non-Jews married, then one becomes a Noahide, but they're still married to a Christian. Okay. They can still stay married. Now, if they have younger kids or whatever, how they're going to educate them? Okay, it's going to be an issue. But they have to discuss it. They have to, make certain boundaries or whatever. Again, is that reason to divorce someone? No. I just, there are a lot of factors involved. There are a lot of things involved that you have to deal with. All right, that I don't think is a question. Somebody asks, how to manage misery that comes with correcting one's addiction. Is there a way in the Talmud prescribes cigarette addiction? That's what the addiction is. Remember, we all have an evil inclination. Right? God gave everyone an evil inclination. So the Gemara says, even though we have an evil inclination, we have an antidote. What's the antidote to an evil inclination? Torah. Torah is the antidote. Now, Torah itself, person has an addiction. Torah by itself, and again, I'm not a psychologist, at any stretch, by any stretch. A person has to realize Torah does not solve everything, right? It does not solve, everything, over here. So someone points out, a lot of good books by Rabbi Abraham Twersky, a blessed memory about addiction. there are ways. His things on addiction is very good, right? It's definitely very good. So I can't say a specific way, according to the Gemara, to help someone. The only thing I can say is that the more a person understands what their goal is in life, what they're supposed to do, the bigger picture, I would say, and again, people could make fun of this. I'm not a psychologist. I didn't play one on TV, but I would venture to say that unless you're talking like mental illness or, God forbid, abuse or other things, I would say if a person understands the bigger picture, if they understand things happen not necessarily because I did it, but that God runs the world, he's trying to teach me something, and it might be hard and all that, I would say maybe 80%. I think it's higher, but I'll be a little bit conservative here, small c. And I would say 80%, of a lot of things a person deals with, if they see and understand the bigger picture according to Torah philosophy, it shouldn't affect them in a negative way, as bad, right? If that. So person, abuse, different issue. Totally different issue, right? Psychological abuse, yeah. Also a totally different issue. But I would say, the best advice I ever got, from one of my mentors, and that is, one of my rabbis told me many years ago, and that is, whatever people say, whatever they say, look at them like they have a 25 IQ. His language was, look at them like they're insane. They deserve to be in a straitjacket, hung up in Sing Sing, right? Put in a mental institution. Now, the reality is that's true because of how they live their lives. They'll never think, oh, you think, I'm a mental case? You're a mental case. You're a fanatic, okay? Right? But the reality is what they're doing in their lives and how they act and just go according to their base desires, whatever their heart tells them, that means, yeah, their evil inclination overcame them. Their evil inclination destroyed them, totally destroyed them. So I would say like this. If a person understands how the world works, and the fact that we go through trials and tribulations, I recommend people read the book Derech Hashem, The Way of God by Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, by the Ramchal. I'm going to put it up here. 1 second. Derech Hashem, The Way of God by Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, or the Ramchal. Great book, given a lot of classes on it, a lot of it very much steeped in Kabbalah, but nonetheless, it's a must-have. Changed my life, the way we're supposed to look at the world, right? So essentially, what the Ramchal there says is that, yeah, we have a lot of trials and tribulations. We live in a world of distraction. But even though we live in a world of distraction, God does not want you to get distracted. He wants you to tap into his world, right? To do what he wants you to do. Now, a person's going to say, but I get beaten down in life. I spoke about this a lot. I get beaten down in life, and life is hard. True. We all have it. Whether it's livelihood, family, any number of things. Any number of things can get us down. And get us down in a major way. So how do you get out of it? How do you get up and sing and dance on a regular basis, because of all the difficulties? I'll tell you. The way is to write down 20 things. I usually say 10, right? Write down 10 things, 20 things you're thankful for, that you're actually thankful for. I'm healthy. Be thankful for that. You have a roof over your head, even if you don't own it. Be thankful for that. You have food. You're not starving. Be thankful for that. Million things. There are a million things. So when a person's down and really down, look at the list before you burn it. Look at it, because that shows you the bigger picture. That shows you you're right. This is hard and that's hard. It could be almost impossible. Person could be on their knees for different reasons. For different reasons, you just feel they can't function, right? But at the end of the day, who runs the world? God runs the world. Why are you being put through this? If I knew that, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be world famous, right? I'd be a prophet. I'm not a prophet. Why is God doing this? I don't know. But guess what? When doors get closed, doors open. You're going to say, well, that's very nice to talk. Well, it's happened. I know different people it's happened to. I know it's happened to myself in many ways. You think, oh, this door got slammed and that door gets slammed. Guess what? You say, okay, what do you want now? What do you want from me now? I don't know. But at the end of the day, other doors open. So you can only see that. I would say you can only see that in hindsight. It's very hard to see it while you're going through it, unless things clear up in a major way. Unless things open in a totally different way. Right? At the end of the day, we have to see the bigger picture. If you don't see the bigger picture, then everything looks like chaos. Just like what Amalek, we're getting closer to Purim, just like what Amalek brought to the world. No such thing as a higher being. No supernatural. Stuff happens. Wrong place at the wrong time. Right? Wrong place at the wrong time. I just read a story. I'll give an example. Right? I'll give an example. I just read an article today. A couple of weeks ago, there was a horrific terrorist attack here. Right? It's right before Shabbos, where an Arab, people waiting for a bus, an Arab plows into a bus stop. Right? Plows into a bus stop. Killed 2 kids. Father's, whatever, should get well. Right? He's also in very rough shape. 2 kids died. 2 kids, 7 and 5, I think. It's, we don't understand these things. A son-in-law of Rav Shach, blessed memory, he was the Torah giant of the last generation, lived to about 100, 102, 103. He was the head of the yeshiva in Panovich. Right? One of the Torah giants of the last generation, according to everybody. So his son-in-law, his son-in-law is still alive. Sphere May Bregman, I think his name is. Should be well, 93 years old. 93 years old, not the best of health. 93 years old. He went to visit his family. So he came to them, and he said the following. He said, I want you to know, when I was a child, I was 5 years old. I went to Kever Rachel. Kever Rachel is where Rachel Imenu is buried, the birthplace of the burial place of Rachel, the wife of Jacob. Not actually, probably about 20 minutes from where I live, right? Not far from where I live. It happens to be in Bethlehem. I mean, there are ways to get there that are safe, whatever. Point is, what was the point? They're waiting for someone to pick them up. Someone's supposed to pick them up. They're outside. They're outside of this what do you call it? This burial place here. They're outside, and an Arab comes and plows in to his brother. He's 5 years old at the time. His brother was 3. Right? The brother died pretty much almost on the spot. On the spot. And anyway, he's telling the story. And so there's no question, once he died, while putting, lights around the body, for whatever different reasons. And basically, Rabbi told him, you don't have to, right? There's no reason. They don't need this extra guarding because they were killed, just for being a Jew. This boy was killed being a Jew, and his soul was going to be in the upper echelons in heaven, basking in God's glory. You got nothing to worry about. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the parents, right? That's what this rabbi said. He's at the highest level. He's at the highest level. You have nothing to worry about. Now you're going to say, but I want my son back. 3 years old, plowed over by an Arab. So I would say it's like, okay, it's consolation. It's definitely a consolation, some level, right? But why did he tell that story? To comfort them. And to say, don't think this was just a random event. These 2 children, their souls came down, and they sanctify God's name over here. They don't need atonement. They don't need anything. Why? You're the one who had to carry them. Okay, we don't know. But you have nothing to worry about where they are. That was the story he told. So what? So the brother's gonna say, but that's catastrophic. You're right. There are a lot of things. Sickness is catastrophic, right? Depending on what it is. and how it affects a person. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things like that we don't understand. Okay. Now, is that fully comforting? I don't know. I wouldn't say 100%, but it's, it gives a person what to think about. The things don't happen randomly. And not only that, but what happened to them, you don't have to worry where they are. I got a story I know, someone personal I know. Their daughter had a late miscarriage. And this soul came to the daughter in a dream. And the soul of that child says, you didn't do anything wrong. That's what I had to go through to get fixed up, whatever my soul had to go through, etc. So, I'm very high up and doing all these different things. You just had to be the one to, go through this, but, you didn't do anything wrong. This is why I had to go through it. This is what happened. So you can say wishful thinking, dreams don't mean anything in general. True. I'm not going to get into dreams, but you're right. True. Dreams don't necessarily mean anything. This is significant though. This isn't just wishful thinking per se. So that's comforting. When you're able to see and hear something that can't make heads or tails out of him, and God throws you a bone, a proverbial bone. He throws something your way to explain what happened. Is that 100% consolation? God forbid anyone should go through any of these things, right? Is it 100% consolation? No. Would that person rather have the child back? Sure. But when you get an explanation like that, and we don't fathom anything, and it seems random, what's God reminding you of? It's not random. Why did this have to happen? Okay. This soul came back, gave an explanation. This rabbi gave an explanation. What's going on over here? Again, it's going to be full, consolation. No, but we go through a lot of different things. A lot of different things, and we think it's the end of the world. And it seems like the end of the world. You know what? God's in charge. If we live that 100% on a daily basis, nothing bothers us. Doesn't mean we don't have to work hard, put our best foot forward. It's hard, but I don't believe by certain things Torah enough is alone. Even if a person understands the bigger scheme of things, certain things they go through, they may need, therapy, maybe serious therapy, but again, me not knowing anything, in this field, I would say, and again, you can take it with a grain of salt, the knowledge that a person has and, and how it looks in the bigger picture can solve a lot of things. Can change a person, from walking around doom and gloom on a daily basis, not being able to function, to actually being able to function. Now, is that the only way? No, it's not the only way. You may need psychology, you may need, therapy, whatever. I'm saying if a person had an outlook in how the world works without getting emotionally involved, which is kind of hard to do, it's kind of hard to separate. But if you understand the bigger picture, regardless of what's going on, that can take away, I would say 80%. I think it's higher, but let's say 80%. The other 20% you got to deal with. True. Definitely true. But it's the outlook that changes everything. So, again, I'm not saying it gives you a free slate to say, that's all I have to do is believe in Torah mitzvahs and everything changes. It's how your mentality changes. It's how you look at it. It's how you live it. Because if you don't, you'll be depressed. Like everyone else, you'll be on Prozac. Life is hard. I'm not saying not. Everyone has it, in different ways. Someone here mentions, I want to answer this question. That was about addiction. Someone says, a rabbi teaches no hides, that says no hides are forbidden to say Shabbat Shalom. I don't know. We hold saying Shalom may be using God's name, and one of the names of God. So maybe a non-Jew should be using names of God, to say good Shabbos. I don't know if that's forbidden. I'm not sure I would say that's forbidden. If you're going to tell me it's using the name of God, okay, maybe a non-Jew shouldn't be saying that, right? I could hear because Shabbos doesn't really apply to them. There are things they can do. 100%. There are things that they could do on Shabbos without doing it like a Jew. Participate in certain ways, so yeah, I could hear saying, Shabbat Shalom doesn't apply to them. I could hear that. because it doesn't really apply to them. Even though some people say, I heard some people say, big quote unquote into the Noahide movement, and they would say, well, we know some people say non-Jews can't keep Shabbos. Wink, wink, wink. Well, we say you can't. The Torah says, Exodus chapter 20, the sign between God and the Jewish people. Doesn't apply to non-Jews. Now, doesn't mean a non-Jew can't necessarily tap in to certain things, right? They certainly can't do it, make up their own religion, keep it like a Jew, no question. They also can't refrain from doing certain categories of forbidden work that Jews can't do. Does that mean they can't have a nice dinner? Doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean they can't have challah, they can't have bread? Doesn't mean that. Right? Certain things, yeah, for sure they can't do. But they are allowed to tap in. So, in a certain way, if they're allowed to tap in, why should that be forbidden? Because they'll say it doesn't apply to them in general. Okay? Someone mentions, but lupina growing in Iceland's deserts turn into soil for trees. And for also a lot of these glaciers and different things are melting. Maybe a proof to global warming, I don't know. But deserts turn into places where trees grow a sign of Mashiach. I don't know if that is or not. There are definite signs that we're living in the Messianic era. Right? I don't think there are 15 signs. 15 signs. That the Gemara says that show we're living in the Messianic era. And a lot of them come true. That it's today. Do we need other signs? I don't know. Maybe that is a sign. So, everyone agrees we're living in the Messianic era, right? The only question is, when is the Messiah actually going to come? Right? We're very close. Or many great rabbis say we're very close. When's it going to happen? Nobody knows, right? Or whoever knows, it's not saying. So yeah, maybe it is a sign. I don't know. I don't know if that's a sign or not. But there are other signs. There are a number of other signs that I think it's pretty clear that we're living in the Messianic era. That does, that everyone agrees. When the Messiah is going to come, how it's going to happen, nobody knows. Right, that's for sure. Nobody knows. Someone says you got a lot of doubts, biblical critics and so on. Keep the Noahide laws just in case it's true. What else are you going to do? If you're not going to convert to Judaism, then you have to keep the Noahide laws. Right? So it's not just like, well, if I feel like keeping it, what else are you going to keep? Can't be a Hindu, can't be a Christian, can't be a Muslim, right? Even if they believe in one God, they're not keeping the Noahide laws. Right? They're not de facto, others would disagree, but I don't think it's true. They're not de facto keeping the Noahide laws, right? So the Muslims are out. So what are you going to keep? What quote unquote religion are you going to keep that's going to keep you in God's favor? Except being a Noahide. I mean, Noahide's not a religion, right? If you don't keep the Noahide laws, you're in trouble. That's for sure. That is not, it's not just in case it's true. I'm gonna throw this out there, throw people for a loop. And that is, according to the Rambam, who answers all these questions about the Noahide laws, right? He's like the go-to person to understand the Noahide laws from. And that is, a person has to believe that God gave the Torah to Moses and he passed it down, and non-Jews have to keep the Noahide laws through that. That's like a criterion. If a non-Jew believes in the Noahide laws because they make sense to them, they'll get some level of credit. But essentially, they have to believe it's God-given. Not just like, oh, it's an option. Or I felt like doing it, or it made sense to me. No, they have to keep it because God said so. Right? It's not just, well, I'm going to keep it just in case. Well, what else are you going to do? What else were you going to do? Either be a Jew, that's your other choice. You can convert. You can't keep any other thing. Can't be a Hindu, can't be a Christian, you can't be a Muslim. Right? What else? Where else are you going to go? There's nowhere else to go. Right? Not an option. Oh, I feel like doing it. What do you feel like doing it? Right? Just in case it's true. It is, first of all, it is true. Second of all, you have to keep it. You have to keep it as a non-Jew. That's it. You don't have to convert, but you have to keep the Noahide laws properly. Not just like I feel like, oh, it's just my intention, right? Just in case it's true, you got to believe God gave it. Now, if you have doubts, if a person has doubt, you still have to keep it, right? You still have to keep it. If, again, the Rambam says you got to keep it because God said so. And what if you don't? What if you don't? You're in trouble. I would say that, you want to keep the Noahide laws because you believe they're true. If you have doubts, does that mean you go in heaven? I don't know. Depends what the doubts are. Does the doubts make you a heretic? Depends what it is. Person has to believe 100%, that it's true. We can be thrown, for a loop because certain things happen in our lives and things are hard. True. Right. That is true. But at the end of the day, we still got to believe. You could say, well, what if a Jew keeps Torah and mitzvahs because he's afraid he's going to fry in hell forever? Does he get a portion of the world to come? He does what he needs to do. Yeah. Is it at a high level? No. He's doing the minimum. Because the Mishna Pirke Avos says, we mentioned the highest level is to serve God even if you don't get a reward. But if you have doubts, are you going to get reward? Still get reward. 100%, you still get reward. But a person has to work on their faith. Doesn't mean you're totally tossed out. It depends. Do the doubts make you a heretic? If the doubts make you a heretic, that's a different issue. Right? But a person should never think, well, I'll keep the Noahide laws just in case. No. You got to believe 100% they're true. And even if you have doubts, you still have a place in the world to come, unless these doubts sort of make you an heretic, so to speak. Right. Someone points out it has a portion of the world to come. That is true. Right. If they do what they need to do. That doesn't mean a Noahide's going to go through a Gilgul. Right. I don't know about that. That Noahide's going to, be reincarnated and be fixed up. I don't know. It depends. It depends. It depends what they do. Are they liable? Were they liable for the death penalty? They didn't repent. Let's say they transgressed one of the Noahide laws. They didn't repent and they're liable for a death penalty. Right? So they don't get anything. They die. What happens to them? Nothing. They don't have a portion of the world to come. They have to do enough to have a portion of the world to come. And if they do something and they're liable for a death penalty, don't repent, what happens? They die. Right? Seemingly they die. I don't think they come back. They're not given another chance. Not as much as I know. Someone asks like this: when my Muslim wife insists circumcise my baby boys and Noahides, what should you do? Right? What should you do? Circumcision really is a sign between God and the Jewish people. Right? There are three signs between God and the Jewish people. One of them is circumcision, one of them is Shabbos, one of them is tefillin, phylacteries, whatever you want to call them. So if that's true, if that in fact is true, Muslims seemingly, if they're the offspring of Keturah, right? Keturah was Hagar, right? If they're not, or let's say better, if they were an offspring of Yishmael, which is very hard to prove today because Sennacherib mixed up all the nations, but let's say they could show they go back to Yishmael, right? So there is a question the Rambam asks by the kids of Keturah and Abraham whether they need circumcision or not. Certainly not like a Jew, but seemingly they'd be obligated. They were obligated to circumcision. So if they'd be obligated to circumcision, nothing wrong over it. They're not doing it. You're not doing it like a Jew, right? So that wouldn't be an issue. That wouldn't be an issue. Now it could be. You'll say they're doing it according to Muslim rites. In other words, according to Muslims, they're doing it for, entering the covenant, whatever. They're not going to do it as a baby like we do. Do it later or who knows what, right? But it doesn't mean it's forbidden. It's forbidden. You're going to say, well, what if it's done for the sake of their religion? Again, it's not a true Noahide religion. It's close. they believe in one God, but there are plenty of things that they do that are forbidden, for Noahites to do. So makes it a false religion, right? But that doesn't disqualify. It doesn't disqualify the child. You don't have to stop it, right? That's what I would. That's what I would say. Yeah. Any other questions? Let me see. Are there any questions I missed? Yeah, someone mentioned. Just want to I'll mention one thing. Yeah, something that we mentioned earlier. A non-Jew sort of, you want to convert, you're going to have to jump through certain hoops. There's certain things you're going to have to do. And one of them, which is probably the most difficult, is to move to a place as a normal community. Or it doesn't have to be a huge community, right? But it has to be a place, if you have kids, that, that they're educatable. There are schools that can't homeschool, right? So a rabbinical court's going to want to see that. And even in a smaller community, let's say you're not within, I got this question before, how close do you have to be? You have to be, I would say 45 minutes, an hour in walking distance, if possible. If possible. You got to be within striking distance to get to synagogue. Walking distance. And a rabbinical court could say 2 miles is too far, or 3 miles is too far, to get there on Shabbos or whatever. But if there's a bigger community, let's say you're within an hour or 2 hours of a bigger community, but the only thing around you is Chabad. So that might be all right, as long as if a person had kids, they could send them to school, right? That's going to be a criteria, right? If you don't have kids, okay, it's a moot point, right? But if a person got married and now they want to have kids, that's, they're going to have to move. Again, I would say that's probably the single most difficult thing to do, because if you have to move, again, does your job go with you or it doesn't? Right? Are you able to, switch over somewhere else or get a new job? Or, again, these things have to be looked into. These things definitely have to be, looked into. And, I would agree that having a community is a lot easier. True. It's definitely a lot easier. Even though in other ways, being an Noahide, I think is definitely a lot easier. And some people say, I don't want to be Noahide. I want to take on all the mitzvahs. I want to learn everything. Okay. But there are criteria, and there are people that do that. There are people that that are able to do that. There's no question. One question there. Are there any rabbis help with conversion, here in the States? So it depends where you are. It depends where you are. Some will say they don't do conversion. Okay, no matter if they do conversion or not. A person needs, a rabbi is going to sponsor them. It's going to, it's going to vouch for them in a rabbinical court that says that, they keep Shabbos, they keep kosher, and what I do is I give class, right? I give class helping people in the conversion process. So people say, oh, all you can do is write a letter. You're right. I can write a letter to my classes. I recommend them. I'll speak to the rabbinical court. That's worth a lot if you have, if you have real credentials. If you have real credentials, that's really helps. There are rabbis that do. It depends where you are, right? It depends. It depends where you are. So yeah, if you're in a place, I think actually it's funny. There's Chabad in every state. The last state, I think Chabad went to is actually South Dakota. So South Dakota doesn't have very much. I mean, they have a Chabad there probably, but I think that's about it. So when you mentioned there's a Reformed synagogue there, you got a problem, right? That you don't want to go that route, obviously. And if Chabad's around, you can go there. Very good. If not, then you'd have to move somewhere else. Someone asked, I just wear a hat instead of a yarmulke. Who said, you could, right? Nothing stopping you. Definitely nothing stopping you. But as a Jew, person's head should be covered. I don't think there's any question. What about Jehovah's Witnesses? Yeah, they're we don't we don't hold by them. A person can't be they're they're Christian. Essentially, they're Christians. They believe in one God. They don't believe in the Trinity, but they believe in JC. Died for humankind's sins. That's a problem, right? Basically, it's idolatry. So, again, either you're going to be a Noahide, right, or you're going to convert. There's nothing else, right? There's nothing else over there. Why don't we start a fund and just build a new tabernacle? We don't need a new tabernacle. We need the base of Mikdash. We need the temple itself. That's only going to be built by the Messiah when he comes. Right? We don't have a right to do that before he comes. There are certain criteria. One of the criteria is the Messiah has to come. There has to be an ingathering in the exiles, and he has to build the temple. He can't build the temple before. And I would tell you, even politically, we're not going to get into politics, but even politically, if a person wanted to do it or you tried to do it, the government will stop you. 100% the government will stop you. Right? There's no question. There's absolutely no question. The government, it's a non-starter. There are people every year that try and bring a Paschal offering, Passover, and before Passover, it doesn't even get off the ground. They stop them, before they even, God forbid, even get on the Temple Mount, right? So politically speaking, it's never going to happen. The police are never going to allow it, So the only time it can happen is when the Messiah comes, right? That's what he's supposed to do. One second. One question. Isn't believing and claiming the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Messiah's heresy? Most people think so. Most people thinking that the Rebbe is the Messiah. There's a problem because one of the things the Messiah cannot do is die. Rebbe Kiva learned that from the story of Bar Koziva, or known other as Bar Kochba. And Bar Kochba died. When Rebbe Kiva saw that Bar Kochba was killed, he realized he was not the Messiah because the Messiah cannot die. Right? So a lot of people hold, a lot of people hold that's forbidden, right? Totally forbidden. So my Rebbe holds it's just a crazy idea. He doesn't hold that it's idolatry. Many other rabbis disagree and would say that even if they believed the Rebbe is the Messiah and they kill an animal properly, you can't eat from them. Right? That's pretty bad. Right? That's pretty bad. So yeah. Yeah, let me see any questions. Someone here asked, Judaism allows surrogacy. Yeah, it's a surrogate mother. Let's say it's Jewish, embryo from a non-Jewish parent. Oh, that's complicated. That is complicated. Even if you had, let's say, a non-Jewish surrogate. Let's say you put an egg. Or let's say she used her own egg, but it's, I don't know. However it works, the question is the surrogate considered the mother or not? And if the surrogate's a non-Jew, how can you have a non-Jew do it? So whatever, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions over here. Even, the question is, you go by the egg. Is it the non-Jewish egg, even though it's fertilized by a Jew, or do you go the fact that, let's say it's a Jew's egg. Let's say it's a Jew's egg goes into a non-Jew. So, is surrogacy okay? I would say it's okay. I think there's a question who the real mother is, right? If it's somebody a non-Jew, we allow it. We do allow it. There is a question again who the mother is. I celebrate Jewish holidays. No, depends what you do. Depends what aspect of it you do. If you celebrate it like a Jew, obviously that's forbidden, right? If you're going to acknowledge God's provision to the Jews, why are you keeping it? You can't make it a religion. That's forbidden. So why are you keeping it? There are certain things you can do. There are certain things at certain holidays I would advise anyone who's interested. I give an OHID class every Sunday, 2:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Israel time. And it's on Noahide Nation's website, noahidnations.org, noahidnations.com. I'm finishing them up. Noahide. Right, it's Noahide Nations. I think it's Noahide Nations. It's noahidnations.com. So there you can sign up for free. Doesn't cost anything. And there are a lot of, I've done 57, I think, 57 videos. You should look up the ones on the holidays, what you're allowed to do. What you're allowed to do, not allowed to do. Right? So there are things you're allowed to do. You're allowed to participate, right? In some ways. Obviously, you can't keep it as a Jew, right? You can't make up a new religion. So, there are ways to do it. So I would say, go through a bunch of those videos and see. Someone asks, please JC, the son of, I get it. Is being afraid of the afterlife a bad thing? No, definitely not a bad thing, because there's reward and punishment. Should a person be afraid, what's going to happen to them? Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. Definitely don't think it's a problem. A Nazarene's allowed to shave their legs. I don't know. Go ask Nazarenes. Why would they be allowed to shave their legs? A regular non-Jew, no hide, can they shave their legs? I don't see why it's a problem. Even if it's a guy, let's say a guy wants to shave his legs, wants to shave his armpits. And we'll say, well, for a Jew, that'd be forbidden. For a Jew, it's forbidden. Why? Very simple. Because you're not allowed to do what women do. Right? That's what women do. Could a non-Jew do it? Nothing wrong with it. For a non-Jew, doesn't matter what affiliation. They want to shave their legs, not a problem. Right? Certainly for a guy. For a woman, wouldn't even be an issue. Right? That wouldn't even be an issue. Let me see. There are other questions here. What about waxing? Waxing also shouldn't be a problem for Jews or non-Jews, right? That shouldn't be a problem. For a guy, it'd be a different issue, right? For a guy, we'd say it's forbidden. Why? Because, again, it's doing what women do. And a lot of things that women do, we're not allowed to do. Guys shouldn't have an earring. Guys shouldn't have, they're getting dressed and stare in the mirror for 20 minutes, trying to print, make sure they're okay, and every last thing is okay. It's what women do. If you're doing it to make sure my language, you wouldn't look like a schlep, you don't want your hair out of place and this and that. Okay, but if you're in there, if you're there for like 20 minutes, half an hour, that's a problem, right? That would be a, that would be an issue. So someone here mentions St. Louis. Yeah, if you're in St. Louis, there are a number of Orthodox synagogues there, right? If you can get there, that is true. Any other questions? Waxing leads to bleeding. Would it be permissible? Why? Because you're making a wound. I think in general it should be all right. If it's something, if it's by accident, I don't know. Listen, if a person goes to the dentist, causes bleeding, right? You're making somewhat of a wound, but that's to heal you, right? So for healing, that would be okay. If you're doing something like this, let's say a woman does it and she bleeds. I don't know if that's a problem. I don't know if it's necessarily a problem. The problem is you're making a wound, right? Is that making a wound? I guess, but if obviously that's not your intention, right? It happened by accident. I think it's all right. Somebody mentioned by Kansas City. I think that's a community there also. think there's definitely a community in Kansas City also. You could check out. Yeah. Anyway, okay. I'm gonna stop here. I just every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Israel time. There will be a part 24 next week. So anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good. Middle of the day, beginning of the day, end of the day, depending where you are. And everyone have a great rest of the week.